and welcome to the Hybrid School Builders Podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Foley, and I am so glad you are joining me today. I am a fellow grassroots founder who is hoping to make your journey toward founding a sustainable hybrid school a little bit easier. If you are dreaming of starting a hybrid school, or perhaps you've already gotten started, you are in the right place. Join me as we dive into real stories, practical tips, and hard-won lessons that I have learned to help you launch and grow your program with confidence. Remember, building a hybrid school is not just about creating a business or creating jobs. It's not even about just serving the children who attend the program. It's literally about reshaping the landscape of education, and we can do that one community, one entrepreneur, and one program at a time. Hey guys, welcome back. I wanted to talk today about founder burnout and a new term that I just learned about, which is called founder syndrome. I probably could do another episode, if not 3 episodes on this topic, because it's actually a huge thing in the nonprofit world, especially probably in the for-profit world, also with small businesses. But I wanted to talk about this because I find myself being drawn, if you haven't noticed, if you've listened to multiple episodes, to the systems and structures for sustainability in small educational programs, which just means how do we make programs that last and that are healthy, not just financially, but structurally, and especially in nonprofit programs where you have the added layer and complexity of being board governed. How do you make sure that the founder is well taken care of, but also not so well taken care of that the organization is really about the founder and not about the mission? How do you make sure employees are well taken care of? How do you make sure that everyone is well resourced? The communication and training and management are high quality. How do you make sure your board knows what they're doing? I find myself being drawn to that because I keep seeing over and over again. There's a bunch of reasons for that, which is part of what I'm going to get into. But I want to really just focus on the problem of founder burnout, okay? Now, before I get into that, though, I did want to say that I would like to start doing a few interviews with other hybrid school founders at various stages of the journey. If you're interested in sharing your story, shoot me an email and let me know what kind of program we have and how old that is, and we could talk a little bit more about that. I would like to delve into stories about things like founder burnout and sustainability, growth, how to handle systems, areas of frustration that pop up after the first year or 3 or 5 years, and how you have remedied those, or even if you don't have a solution yet and you're just feeling it, you're starting to feel it and you're wondering what happened, this was working just fine. 1, you're not alone. 2, it just, I think, would be helpful to everyone to hear more stories of this, because don't forget, we're all kind of pioneers in a new venture here. And so while the nonprofit model is not new necessarily, and small business and entrepreneurship is certainly not new, but doing it at this time and place in this legal structure, framework, culture is definitely a whole new undertaking. So if you're interested, just shoot me an email and let me know, and maybe we can set something up. Okay, so talking more about founder burnout. All right. Now, burnout is just when you are just feeling like, I don't know why, but I can't do this anymore. But something's got to give. Okay, when you start feeling like that, you're maybe you are losing some of your passion, but a lot of times you haven't really lost your passion for your mission. You really still love what you're doing, but you're doing too much. And it's usually because of under-resources, right? Either financial under-resource or structural under-resource. And that could be personal. In my case, I didn't have babysitting for my kid for the longest time. And I also wasn't, really getting paid enough, which was kind of my own fault because I'm the one who made the budget, which is why I'm a huge proponent of making sure that you take care of yourself in your budget. That's not being selfish. Maybe you don't have the personal family or, extended family structure to support. Maybe you have other things calling upon you, like another job or more children or different aged children or spouse that works a lot, or any number of things that can cause burnout that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the actual job, right? That can happen in any environment. But when you're particularly pouring your heart and your soul into a mission-driven organization that's a business, right? And there's other people relying on you, not just the people that you're serving, but also volunteers and employees and just like other staff members. And you're trying to keep everything legal and compliant, and you're trying to make sure the bills are paid, right? And as a founder, you have a level of responsibility and commitment that you might not necessarily have if you were just working a job that maybe the only incentive for working the job is because it pays you, a regular sort of maybe full-time or part-time job that you're doing just because you need the money, which is one of the primary reasons a lot of people just go to work, is just because they need to pay the bills, right? But when you're a founder of a nonprofit, that you're not usually starting a nonprofit because you just need to pay the bills and you need a job. You'd go get a job somewhere else if that's all you were doing, right? So there's something unique about the founder heart and I came across the term psychological ownership that's very unique in a founder's heart, mind, attitude toward the business that they start, and especially for some mission that's bigger than you, okay? So you have this extra drive and passion that's making you pour your heart and your soul and your research and your time and your money into this business, okay? That's kind of a ripe environment for burnout. Something like well over half of founders experience burnout within a few years of starting an organization, okay? And so for educational organizations, like I said, it's a pioneering new environment. It's a new landscape that a lot of us are in the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, right? Post-COVID, 6 years, I guess it's 6 years now. It's a brand new environment. So you're also navigating like a new business model, probably for a lot of us. Never started a nonprofit. You may never even worked for a nonprofit before, right? Or maybe you are an LLC and that's also new. So you're starting to navigate this new legal structure, business structure, financial stuff. And you're also doing it in an environment that is also new. What is a hybrid school legally? What is a micro school legally? Nobody really knows, right? Like they're not in the laws like private school and homeschool and public school are. And like accreditation, that stuff's been around for decades. These new learning environments, they don't even have consistent names necessarily. Some are learning centers, some are hybrids, some are micro schools. What does that even mean? Everyone kind of has their own little definition of it because it's such a new place to be. So there's like a lot of layers being, I guess, dug through or piled on top of, however you want your image to look, on top of the founder as they're navigating this new territory. Okay, so burnout is very possible when you're trying to navigate something like that. I haven't done a ton of research, but in just an hour, I was able to do a little delving and see that someone had written a dissertation, someone else had written a whole article on founder burnout, what a problem is in nonprofits, and had done research on why this happens and ways to prevent it and all of that, which in some ways was validating because what I was seeing was exactly what I saw in my own experience and with people that I've talked to in this environment. It's that part of it is extremely common in the nonprofit world, especially. It's not unique to the educational entrepreneurs. They're just also navigating a brand new landscape and with a brand new type of business, a new type of model, I guess. So that adds just an extra layer. So if you're starting to feel burned out, don't feel bad because it's extremely common. But you don't want to feel burnout. And I don't think that it is inevitable. I think, and this is why I find myself having a kind of a growing passion to help early and new founders to put the structures and systems in place and the training in place so that they don't head toward burnout. And if there's multiple members, either a team that was running things or 2 or 3 founders, a team who weren't founders or a team that were founders, especially, then it kind of adds multiple levels to the founder burnout, founder syndrome problems, is that they're also trying to figure out how to distribute their roles as the growth happens and the transition happens, like the transition of like pushing the governance over to the board if they weren't already doing it, or taking the operations off of the board if the board should have been doing governance and they were doing advisory. And then you also have multiple founders who are dealing with their own founder burnout. Possibly the founders don't want to let the control go that they had because this was their dream, this was their vision. And if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 of them who were all working together, maybe when everything was small, and now there's more that has to be delegated, more that has to be described. Everyone kind of has to stay in their lanes now, communicate, but also like let other people make the decisions that they've been making, because it's just not sustainable to like talk about all the little things anymore. That's an even further complication. So it can add multiple levels of complexity if there's a lot of people who aren't really understanding, from board right down through multiple founding members, or even if they're not founding members, just director sort of people who are maybe having mixed understanding of their roles because it needs to transition and it's difficult to describe what everybody is doing. The founder might be asking the board to help with more governance stuff and kind of being like, and I also need you to kind of like appoint me as the executive director because I'm doing all this stuff. I'm not supposed to be doing all this stuff without like a title, and I'm writing my own job description, setting my own pay, kind of, which you guys are approving. I'm kind of having to like tell you what. And it can be like just really like this burden where you feel like this emotional burden too as a founder. This contributes to the burnout because you're having to like govern the board that's supposed to be governing you. By the way, I found some research about founder syndrome, which is apparently like the research I saw was more about how this affects volunteers and employees. But I'd be interested to see if there's more information on how this also affects boards. And they said there was a positive side to it as far as like energy and passion that can be carried through. But I guess it tends to be a negative thing. The paper that I saw was a dissertation reviewing, the person had done their own research, but had also reviewed multiple other research papers on this phenomenon that they see in a lot of nonprofits, where the founder is afraid to let the organization grow beyond their personal capacity or their personal like vision, and no one else really wants to challenge them on that. And it can limit the growth, and it can limit healthy like communication and management, because everyone's like, well, they're the founder. So this is, it's difficult. It's complex. It's kind of like just the nature of the beast, sort of like, as the founder, you're the one who conceived this whole idea, probably. You're the one who did the hard work in the beginning to get it going. And you didn't maybe mean to have it be this situation where your board is afraid to challenge you, or a co-founder, or an employee, or someone who's managing some other part of the program is afraid to. I'm not trying to say like afraid, like, oh, you're being controlling or something in a like aggressive, assertive sort of way, but in a like, well, I'm sure they know what they're doing. They're the one who started it, and I'm not really sure how we're going to pay for this, or I'm not sure how sustainable this is going to be, or I don't really like how they're doing things, but I don't want to say anything. That's kind of what that founder syndrome is. And it's negative. And I think it can be prevented by by healthy communication everywhere and good culture, which again, the founder probably is going to have to start. So it ends up coming back to the founder, right? But the earlier that they can do this, they can have that humility of saying, look, this cannot be all about me. So I need you guys to tell me, like, if I have an idea, or I'm being maybe tunnel visioned about something, or I'm thinking only about what I can manage, I need you to point it out to me if it's like going to be a problem for the organization, or it's going to limit our sustainability or something. Having that culture from the beginning with the board and with employees can help really prevent this problem, right? And the board and everyone involved, especially in the beginning, has to build that culture. So it's really important that the founder is aware that this is a danger, that they might not even realize other people are looking to them and being like, oh, well, I didn't want to say anything because I figured you did all that work. You probably know what you're doing. And they might be like, oh, well, you should have told me. Like, I didn't even think of that. I needed you to point that out to me, right? So if they're aware that this is a thing, right, they can help set an environment where it doesn't become a huge problem. I wouldn't be surprised if founder syndrome precedes burnout a lot of times, because especially, depending on your personality type, which is why I think it's helpful to understand your personality type to some degree, to see if you have a tendency in this direction. If you're somebody who kind of like is really a helper and a like doer, and you just like everything that needs to get done, you want to do it, or maybe you feel like you're supposed to do it. Well, a lot of times you set yourself up for burnout. If you're somebody who's a little more hands off and you're like, oh, I'm fine with delegating. Like, I will hire people, I will delegate. I'm not going to do it all. I'll just make sure it gets done. If you're that type, you maybe are less prone to long-term burnout, because you can see like how you have to strategize to make sure that it is sustainable beyond you. A lot of that might depend on personality, but I think any founder, no matter which way they go with that, feels a very deep, heartfelt ownership of the mission, right? This was their dream, and they worked their tail off to get started. There's professional names for the different phases that I don't know off the top of my head, but the different phases of like the conception and the infancy and I'm just going to use childhood terms, and toddlerhood and the maturing of an organization like that. And those early years are like, just like with babies, right? It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. It's getting up in the middle of the night and just running on empty for a little while. And then as it matures in some of the systems, they can do some stuff themselves. This happens with an organization too. It can do some of it's got a little maturity, it's got a little momentum, it can take care of itself a little bit. The role changes, right? But the founder, they were there from the beginning, right? They were there from the conception, birth, infancy stages, where you're really just pouring your heart and your soul into getting this to even like survive, right? We moms will joke about keeping the kid alive when they're little. That's what it feels like. Burnout is also common just in nonprofits because of resourcing and management structure and all of that. But founder syndrome and the founder burnout is definitely a thing that's unique to the founder specifically. The word founder is in there. It just looks a little different, I think. So all that to say, I hope that helped you think about why burnout is such a danger for a founder, especially after maybe 2, 3, 4 years, when the organization is maturing a little bit and it's kind of standing on its own 2 feet. And now all of a sudden you're like catching your breath and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then you look around and you say, wait, the board's supposed to be doing some of this governance stuff that I'm doing, or I was doing way too much operational stuff and I needed to hire someone and I don't have it in the budget to do it. I just did it because it needed to get done, right? It's not like too late if you look around and realize that. But what can happen that makes it a little harder is just the systems aren't in place. People are maybe used to you taking care of it, right? So it might take a little while to get the board to understand, oh, we were supposed to be taking care of the paperwork and the taxes and the budget, and we should have had more active committees, and we really need to make sure we're doing our homework, and we actually don't have a job description for an executive director. Like, they may have been spending their time in board meetings doing some operational stuff that they shouldn't have been doing, and now they feel like, oh, wait, we're not supposed to be doing that? Well, that's not why I joined the board. Like, I don't want to look at taxes. I want to help with curriculum planning. And it just got started off on the wrong foot, right? So then you might end up with some tension or frustration. It's so common, okay? And I think it comes back to the founder, and I'm 100% guilty of this, the founder and the original board members, and as board members came in, just not understanding what the difference was between the positions, the founder holding too much, carrying too much, the board and probably the employees and the volunteers relying too much on this one person's heart and vision and work, time and commitment. But if the systems are in place where the board knows what they're supposed to do and they're doing it, but not stuff they're not supposed to do, right? And the staffing, and I think this is just really important for you to understand, even that I say this so many times, especially in the course, I tell you so many times, if you have to wear 8 hats the first year, make sure you understand what each of those hats is and don't plan on doing that long term, because you're going to get burnout if you do that, almost for sure, okay? So you can't just be like, well, I'm the founder, that's who I am. That's just who I am. You have to say, okay, well, I'm the founder, but that's just one of my identities. I'm also the curriculum planner, the strategic director, the administrative director, the HR director. Like, if you're wearing all of those hats, name them so that you can hire those out as quickly as you can. And you have to build your budget from the beginning to say, we either have to find funding, and depending on your model, if you're, I think a lot of hybrid schools, and I recommend this, are to basically 100% tuition funded, or at least very close to 100% tuition funded. You have to set that tuition at the right number from the beginning, knowing that you're going to have to hire out some of these positions, even if you can't do it the first year. Have to, as in, you can't keep wearing all those hats forever. Okay. So understanding the systems, the infrastructure, the staffing system, the difference between board governance and then operational stuff, what an executive director is supposed to do. I think I'll do another podcast episode on that. It's just super important. And the earlier that happens, the earlier that training happens, the earlier that you train yourself as a founder and your board, and you really understand that organizational structure, the less chance, I think, of burnout happening to you, okay? And to me, it's very important that you understand like your giftings, your personality a bit, and you stay in those areas of strength. You head toward those areas of strength. Now, I will say that this is scary to do as a founder. So I am not pretending that this is easy, because as a founder, you do feel a very strong emotional and psychological connection to this thing that you built, right? It's like one of your children almost. Not literally, but you feel very strongly about it. It's humbling and it's scary. A nonprofit, legally, tax status, has to be run by a board. So they have to be run as in governed by a board, which means that the board could technically go fire you and hire somebody else to run your organization. They can do that. And that is terrifying, right? When you're a founder. And it's very, very easy to fall into this apparent founder syndrome and I don't think it's something the founder necessarily does, like a bad thing that the founder does. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's something that's just kind of a side effect that accidentally happens just by nature of the ownership that the founder feels. But I think it can be prevented by the founder, by them saying, look, this isn't all about me from the beginning, and just understanding that, like, this is about the mission, but also being able to balance that with like, but while I'm here doing it as a staff member, I need to be compensated and I need to have the correct infrastructure in place and the support in place, because it can't be all about me. And telling the board that and making sure their employees understand that in an appropriate way for whatever position they're in, that like, we have to build the infrastructure so it isn't just about the founder. If the founder has a health difficulty, the founder moves away, right? That the mission goes on and the infrastructure is there to support it. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Job descriptions are there. The resources are there. And the people who could replace that person if they needed to, not as a like you're disposable, but as a like the infrastructure must live on, right? The mission must live on. We need to understand what it is you do so it isn't just about you, that those systems are in place. In the beginning, the founder has to build that too, right? But the quicker that they do that by making sure that there's transparency and there's understanding of what it is that they do, by the time you get into the 3 to 5 year, instead of feeling burnout, you can be feeling relief that the structures are all in place. And now you can operate in your area of strength. You can actually do the thing that you do best for this mission. But if you had to leave for some reason, not for burnout reasons, if you had to leave for some reason, the structure could still support the mission without you. So it's a humbling thing and it's a scary thing, but it's also a huge responsibility and in some ways a privilege to be able to have that knowledge and to be able to build that structure for the purpose of the mission, which is why you started this organization in the beginning. Thanks so much for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you check out the resources I am developing at startahybridSchool.com. Send me an email anytime. I would love to hear from you. Until next time.